Here is one of a series of talks by spiritual leader Lola McDowell Lee, spanning 2 decades from the early 70s through the 90s. Lola was a Zen Roshi, whose Rinzai lineage included Dr. Henry Platov and renowned Zen master Shigetsu Sasaki. Lola was a religious scholar as well as an ordained Christian minister. While the talks are focused mainly on Zen and Buddhism, Lola drew on many spiritual traditions, including those of Jesus, Plato, Lao Tzu, the Hindu Vedas, Meister Eckhart, and Gurdjieff.
What is this 3 a.m? Well, it's about a monkey trainer who said to his monkeys, and he told them, as regards to your chestnuts, you're going to have 3 measures in the morning and 4 measures in the afternoon. On hearing this, all the monkeys became very angry. So the keeper said, all right, then I will change it to 4 measures in the morning and 3 in the afternoon. And the animals were satisfied with this arrangement. The 2 arrangements were the same. See, the number of chestnuts did not change. But in one case, in this case, the monkeys were displeased, and in the other case, they were satisfied. The keeper was willing to change his personal arrangement in order to meet objective conditions, and he lost nothing by it. The truly wise man, considering both sides of the question, without partiality, sees them both in the light of the Tao. And this is called following 2 courses at once. This without partiality, this is one of the most difficult things for us to do. We may have I like and I have this and this I don't like, but we don't view them impartially. We're always swayed a little toward one side or the other. You watch yourself. Yeah. This is called observing. And this little story, of course, comes from Chuang Tzu, who was one of Lao Tzu's students. And I rather think that he really liked this little story because it is so often written in books about him. He was called the genius of the absurd, because he had such crazy little stories. Could make heads or tails out of some of them. But he also saw that the human mind is very monkeyish. Have you ever seen your mind in action? Have you seen your mind when it's still? Have you seen your mind in action? It leaps, it flashes around as if a monkey is leaping from branch to branch. A monkey can't go as fast as the mind can, with these thoughts, Sometimes the thoughts flow along like a river, nice slow river. They come along, and you can see yourself picking up this thought and another thought, and then you pick up a thought that you're very partial to. And this is like a cracker then that you hold in the water, and the fish come from all around and attach themselves to this cracker so they'll have something to eat. They all want to be seen. They all want to have a bite. We call this association of thought. Yeah. And when the cracker's all gone, the fish all swim away, they've dispersed, and here's this river, and we pick up another thought and go through the same thing, and the fish swim away, and we pick up another thought and go through the same thing. Have you observed yourselves? Yeah. Over and over and over and over. I think you'd be horrified to know how many times in a day that you do this, or even in an hour that you do this. And so in the practice of meditation, we transcend this monkeishness. You must become very still. You must become very silent. See, when you become very still, the mind settles down in, and it also becomes very still. And in this stillness, then, can come a perception. It is what we call a subjective perception. It is seeing with the eye of mind. Not with these eyes, but the eye of mind. Subjective, huh? See. And this is called transcendence. Seeing with the eye of mind. If you sit there and you're trembling and you're wavering and the thoughts and the emotions are gushing like a fountain, what's to be seen? Well, the thoughts, of course, and the thoughts and the feelings and, the gushing of the fountain, But this clear perception is not possible. There has to be this stillness. As somebody once said, I don't remember who, it's all right to sit on a fence, only just don't wobble. We not only wobble, we jump back and forth. Huh? We're on one side of the fence, and then we're on the other side of the fence. So 3 in the morning, 4 in the afternoon. 4 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon. Now, our wobbling is our discrimination. And our world, what I call my world, what you call my world, not out there, but your world. My world begins with discrimination. We are for and we are against. We are for pleasure and we are against pain. And you are so conditioned before you even learn to talk. Our world begins with discrimination. The world we are in now, at this moment, today, this is the outcome. All that you have, all the content of your psyche is the outcome of discrimination. Huh? When we are in a state where consciousness has not truly awakened, in a state where consciousness is better yet, should I say, it has not awakened to the state of self-consciousness, of objective consciousness. A little baby for a while does not think I. It doesn't think anything, really, So that kind of a world has no values. It learns values through discrimination. I'm wet. I'm cold. I don't like it. Uh-huh. It has no morals. There is not any what we call aesthetics as opposed to some kind of a grossness. We cannot at that time, at that place, discriminate any of these things. But with the rise of consciousness, self-consciousness, ego I, sort of like, it comes this self. With the rise of consciousness, this ego I rising, self-consciousness. We are objectively self-conscious. The rise of consciousness out of the unconscious is the creation of this objective environment, standing against and working upon this subjective mind. You got a bear by the tail, You're looking for something, and you've got to deal with yourself in this thing. And I say, you've got a bear by the tail. And it doesn't have to be, when this self-objective consciousness now is here at this place, superficially, everything is well-defined and clear, sure, isn't it? Leaving a lot of things out. When you look around, everything is well-defined. Those are flowers, and I pass them when I come in, and I see the red cannas over there, and I think, I want a few of those in my yard. I have got some salmon-colored ones, but I would like to have some red ones. See, I'm discriminating the whole time, well-defined. The flowers are red and yellow, and the leaves are green, and it's clear, it's defined. That's gravel, and that's lawn, and, but the whole thing. Plus some very personal things in there, plus our problems in there. Yeah. And now, when you observe yourself, there is another factor. Sometimes we call it this third factor. And this third factor has various names. I'm going to use several of them this morning. Sometimes we call it ignorance. In this rise of self-consciousness out of the unconsciousness, there is an area in which there is for us a great deal of confusion because we don't know certain things. This third factor is called ignorance. Before we could discriminate, there was no ignorance. As soon as we can discriminate, for instance, there is something that knows, and there is something that is known. And so we say between this noesis, which is to know, and the noema, which is that which is known, between these two, there is a third factor. We ordinarily just call it a dualistic state. This is here and that is there. This is the known, this is by which I know, and that is that which I know. The noesis and the noema. Yeah. In this dualistic state, it's either this, or that. Subject, and that's object. Yeah. There comes this ignorance, and we don't look at it. And it falls over our whole field of knowledge. Yeah. So our knowledge is always accompanied by an ignorance. All you have to do is look now. Just look. Yeah. There is more to us than just, I know and I don't know. On what ground is this I know standing? On what ground is this I don't know standing? What is this that lies between I know? That. I know. And that. We are so engrossed in our discriminating and our dualism that we're not aware, we're not observing that which underlies the I know and the I don't know. You following me? Okay. Now, with some people, this state of dualism, for or against, and so on, is the final word. They cannot imagine anything else except this dualistic state continuing on and on and on. So this subject, that which resides here and knows, subject, is forever set against object, the known. that which stands out there and works on this here. Anything to which I can point and say, I know that. That's object. Now, there are some systems of thought in this world that hold that the opposites remain forever as such. They are then in a state of eternal confrontation. Eternal confrontation. In India, for instance, they have the Samkhya system of Purusha and Prakriti, and what they call spirit and matter. That Prakriti is the great mother. All things are of the mother. All things are in this world. But in this world of Prakriti, the feminine, there is this Purusha who must extricate himself from Prakriti. And they have got a system, boy. You think you're observing, you haven't even begun to get your toes wet. The system that they have of observing. All the gunas and the something else. I mean, they live a lifetime of just observing a few little things about themselves, so that maybe next time around they can observe a few more things about themselves. And of course, it'll all be different and it doesn't make any difference anymore. But anyway, the Purusha and the Prakriti, they take as the two eternal absolutes. And then that's, to go to a certain degree of awakening, and then somebody confronted them with something, and oh yeah, well, there is of course something more. So we have then Mahaprakriti and Mahaparusha, but they still remained two absolutes, which is not tenable. You don't have two. And like somebody tried to tell me once that the Christian system of thought is dualistic, which it's not. Because, well, he created heaven and earth, but they forget he created. See, God created heaven and earth. God, in other words, created the dualism. Anyway, there is one absolute and everything else is relative. You have subject and object in this dualism, and that's not the final word. What is observing comes a little closer. That is the absolute and the relative. So, now, the ground on which that underlies, on which I know or I don't know, that which underlies. It's sometimes called, we have the one and the many. Birth and death, and you and me, and that which is and that which is not. In China, they call this, that which underlies all of this, they call it Tao. And it's actually where you live. You don't live at either end of the stick. You live in that which underlies in the middle. It ties together. It doesn't oppose either the I know or the I don't know. And in Zen, it's called shunyata, or emptiness. That's why we don't see it, and that's why we ignore it. And that's why we don't even look for it. This ignorance, this emptiness. Actually, how often do you look for a bridge between that which you like and that which you don't like? Now, this that we're calling this morning ignorance is not stupidity. They're very, very far from it. It is not stupidity. When we act in this ignorance, we act without knowing. It is this kind of an ignorance. And you will see how close it is. We act without knowing, that is, without noesis. Once in a while, when you walk in Kinhen, or maybe it'll happen outside somewhere, when your foot hits the floor and you're walking, all of a sudden, this is a very different world. Sometimes it happens when you drink something. In Japan, of course, it would be a cup of tea. Here we would say cup of coffee or probably a Coke. When you're drinking something, you lift the cup and you take the sip, and all of a sudden it's an entirely different world. Now, in walking, you know the action of walking, and you know the action of eating, and you know the action of drinking. When you're doing it as it should be done, there is no ignorance in it. The action is known, and it is total. It is not a subject I or an ego I. The foot in the floor. I'm walking on the floor, I subject, the foot is object, the floor is object, It isn't anything of that. It's just a totality of walking. There is no ignorance in it. There is no I know in it. There is no I don't know in it. It is just walking, and everything's together. We walk in ignorance. We walk with this discrimination. We walk with this dualism. Foot and floor and I. Now, into this comes now this term karma. Very much misunderstood. Karma comes from the Sanskrit word kri, which means to act or to work. So let's never mind anything that you have attached to this word at this moment. I mean, you have attached a great many things to some things, I know. Been there. Instead of the word karma, we could use the word samskara. That's what's used in the 12-fold chain of causation. Yeah. Samskara, or karma, is the world under the domination of what is ordinarily called matter, pakrit. The domination thereof, your world, this ignorance. Matter, it's the fields of energy. This is a field of energy. This is a bundle of fields. Fields of energy that we call matter. It isn't matter at all. It's a mass of energy, little eddies and whirls. So let us say this body and its sensations. We accept this body and its sensations. That is the samskara, or the karma. This body and its sensations as the dominant power of life. We are, if truth were known, we are overawed by this body and its sensations. And we subject ourselves to it. And in so doing, we are no more a free-willed, self-acting agent. We are under the dominance. of the samskara. We do the will of the sensations. We act out of its conditionings because it is the way the sensations condition us, you see, and we act out of that and don't even know it. It's almost as if we were a part of a very tremendous machine, and the inner mechanism of how it works, we are entirely ignorant. In that way, most people are moved around as if they were dead leaves in autumn, swept around by the wind, and not a golden wind either. In other words, we are not managers. We are managed. And we are managed by a part of ourselves. I said to myself, I'm independent. I'm going to be free. They can't do this to me. He can't say that to me. She can't do this. All of that right from here. My reactions. I have been managed by my sensations. Neat, huh? Yeah. And people run around saying this is my karma. And they work very hard on themselves, purifying the mind. So they read only good books, and they listen to only certain kinds of music, and they don't talk to certain people because the frequencies are bad. And how else are they going to purify themselves? They only eat certain food. And what else do they do?
And go to church.
And go to certain churches. Okay. True. They talk as if they're purifying their karma. And they don't look at the real problem. Isn't that too bad? Isn't that too bad? They have looked only at some fragments, and they haven't looked at the total picture. And they're purifying themselves with little fragments of thought. Little fragments of thought here, little fragments of thought. All we need is to sit down and shut up. And comes this eye of the mind, and we're awakened. And that awakening sets aside all the ignorance, all the karma, all the samskara. Just sit. Isn't that fantastic? The miracle of sitting. Yeah. We think, all around in whirlpools, and we move things around in our minds. We want to move things around and change things in the environment, all under the dominance of our sensations. We're just not with it. The foot isn't on the floor in totality. The coffee we don't drink in totality. We've got it all nicely fragmented. All you do, one swoop. In Soviet Russia, in 1917, there was a great revolution that took place in the minds of many at that time, because there'd been a great deal of writing. It started, that I know of, by 1893, they were writing about the masters. And so it was supposed to have been mostly a spiritual revolution. And they still feel that a great spiritual revolution will take place in Russia someday. I look for it, and I look for something else to happen over there. Anyway, in this great revolution of 1917, the arrangements were changed. I don't think that either Lenin or Stalin or Trotsky or any of those had ever heard of the story of 3 in the morning. Maybe they did. I don't know. It doesn't sound like it. So what happened? The capitalists disappeared. Of course, they were the nobility at the time. They disappeared. And now, nobody was supposed to be rich. Nobody. And nobody was supposed to be poor. Nobody. The old classes of rich and poor were no more. They got rid of this dualism. Now, what happened? Well, the names changed. New classes came into existence. Before it was rich man, poor man, and now it's managers and managed. It was a managerial revolution. The management changed. See. And it is not by any means a classless society. The classless society has yet to come into existence. Unless we look at some of the Aborigines in Australia and Africa and so on. But even so, they have a leader. So it still is not a classless society. I don't think it's possible to have a classless society. You cannot have everybody the same. You can't. For instance, in India, they have the 4 classes, They divided people into certain classes. Of course, they did it as to where and how you were born, but you can look within yourself and see other people and see how they are. And there are classes of people. In India, there were those who did the fighting. They're the warrior class. And they're the people that did the work. They're the laborers. And then there was the businessman, the shopkeepers and such as that. And then there were the Brahmins, those they were the scholars, abstract thinking, So no matter what kind of society is established, there are these 4. Some people like to keep shop. Some people like to fight. They're the mercenaries of today. They're like keys that fit into certain keyholes. It's their nature at this time. And of course, there is then the 5th category, people they didn't know what to do with. So this was the 5th category, and they called them out of the caste. What they've done with it, of course, is something else. They've made them outcasts, and they're the garbage collectors now. But it was not originally intended that way at all. They were simply out of the caste of these 4. They were special people. I mean, the rishis and the sages of India, were out of the caste system. Anyway, and not everyone's the same. Where are you going to do with these people in a classless society? Anyway, there was once upon a time a young scientist, and abstract thinking, lots of theories about things. He had whirled in these theories, And his father didn't want him to be a research scientist. He wanted him to be a doctor. It's more practical. Be a doctor. Theories aren't a lot of help. Be a doctor. Be down to earth, And so the son was finally persuaded, and he became a doctor instead of the research scientist that he wanted to be. And so he went all through school, and he got his doctorate and everything, and he settled into business. He opened shop, and the first man that came to him, he was suffering from very severe pneumonia. And so the doctor consulted his books. The patient was becoming impatient. Well, his doctor's this thing. And he says, "How long do I have to wait?" And this science, acting as a doctor, he said, "Well, how long do you have? I don't think there's any hope. There's no treatment for this illness. I can't find it. So, how long do you have to wait? About a week. Now, this patient was a tailor, and he went home. And about 2 weeks later, the doctor is passing by on the street, and he sees the tailor is working, and he's healthy, and he's full of vigor and energy, and he's working away at his trade. And he goes in and he says, "You're alive? How did you manage?" And the tailor said, "Well, you said I had a week to live. So I thought, why not live? Hmm? Potato pancakes are my weakness. So on leaving your office, I went to the cafe and I ate 32 pancakes. Immediately I had a great surge of energy and I'm okay." So the doctor wrote this down. Remember this abstract thing? He wrote this down in his little book. 32 potato pancakes is a sure cure for pneumonia. Yeah. So then another patient came, and he also had pneumonia. You can guess what happened, huh? And so this doctor said, "Don't worry. Just don't worry. They have found a sure cure. It's very new. Sure cure for pneumonia. See, you go right out and eat 32 pancakes. Not less, not more. 32 pancakes." So after a week, the doctor goes to see this shoemaker. He was not a tailor. He was a shoemaker, this second patient. And the door was locked, and the neighbors told him that he had died. Your potato pancakes killed him. He immediately comes out the notebook. 32 potato pancakes helps tailors, kills shoemakers. Yeah. This is an abstract mind. It's not practical. See, square pegs don't fit in round holes. Sorry. You can change surfaces, and you can paint all the faces you want. But what's in here is what calls the tricks. What's in here remains the same. Yeah? So now what about this? What is this 3 in the morning? Chuang Tzu, whenever anybody mentions revolution or change, he told the story. The monkey trainer. He told his charges that regarding their chestnuts, they were to have 3 measures in the morning and 4 in the afternoon. And on hearing this, all the monkeys became very angry and they revolted. Yeah. So the keeper said, "All right, I will change it to 4 in the morning and 3 in the afternoon." And the animals were satisfied with this arrangement. But nothing had changed. Not really. We do this all the time. We keep changing the arrangements of the little monkeys. We are confronted always, it seems like, with this tremendous jigsaw puzzle. All these little fragments that we're trying to put together. With one arrangement, we're satisfied. With another arrangement, we are dissatisfied. And the total remains the same. How often do we look at the total? Well, our problem, of course, is that the thinking mind cannot see the total. It's caught with the monkeys. The thinking mind looks at the fragments. It's very nearsighted, so it can only see these fragments. Morning comes along. Oh, I'm going to do this and this and this. It's so pleasurable. And we jump into it, and we don't think about the evening. When there is pleasure, there is bound to be some pain with it. When you find something new, this is so pleasurable, and we think this is wonderful, but how painful to give up the old, even with our thoughts. And some people will not give them up. Very difficult. Yeah, every rose has a thorn. Yeah. We don't look at what could be hidden. You have a nice little baby, you feed it lots of milk, pretty soon you got a diaper. I mean, it's just, people want babies, they're lots of fun. And then all of a sudden they're stuck with all this other stuff. Huh? And teaching it right from wrong and blah, 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 blah. We don't make allowances, you know, for that which is not visible, that which is latent in the situation. We look at the surface and a little fragment, something coming by in the wind, it hooks us. And we look at nothing else except this which enlarges this on which we're hooked. And this little fragment is never totally fulfilling. And it's true, we decide our actions, our living, on fragments. What is in here? What is in here? Mm-hmm. Everything in the phenomenal world is subject to change. There is not anything in the phenomenal world that doesn't change. There is nothing here that is permanent. And yet we all learn, yearn, we want, sometimes desperately, something that doesn't change. Something that is eternal and something that is immortal. We want it, Where did we get this idea that there is something that is eternal and immortal and not movable? Where did we get this idea? There is somewhere, we seem to know, an eternal quiescence. And yet, where do I go to get this? Where do we get this idea that there is this stillness and this quietness when all around us is nothing but change? We have it. How do we solve this contradiction of yes and no? The seeming opposites of permanency and changeability, of that which is eternal and that which is momentary, that which is immortal and that which is dying every minute. There must be some way to solve this problem about ourselves. There must be some way out. What is in here? Now, if you really learn to observe yourself and you look deep within yourself, you can begin to see that where we are experiencing this moving world, this fleeting world, this changing world, we are at the same time experiencing one moment, one and infinite. At the same time, we are self-conscious, we are unconscious, and we are ignorant, all at the same time, if you look within. One moment, one and infinite. That's the way Zen puts it. We are able to be conscious in this world, which is constantly changing, because we stand on a ground of non-moving, on a ground of no change. We're in it. This interfusion of consciousness and unconsciousness, of moving and non-moving. In Zen, they call it the many and the one, or the one and the many, or form and emptiness. That is nama-rupa and shunyata. Form and emptiness, discrimination and non-discrimination, dualism and non-dualism. There is a phrase, that is often quoted from one of the old patriarchs. When I'm hungry, I eat, and when I'm tired, I sleep. And that's Zen. Well, then, how do we come to understand this kind of Zen? We get hungry, and we eat. that doesn't help me to understand Zen, because there's something in there I'm overlooking, or something isn't happening to me, because everybody gets hungry and everybody eats. What then is Zenish about that? Hmm? Hmm. We're conscious, we're hungry. Hmm? Well, being conscious of being hungry doesn't constitute Zen, of course. There is this another state of consciousness. Sometimes it's called supra-consciousness. And it's very difficult to talk about, because most of our talking has to do with relativity of what we know, of the fragments. Our talking is all built on these fragments, huh? It's all with the changing and the phenomenal. And when these relative terms, these fragments are applied to that which is absolute, it doesn't make any sense. And so, of course, Zen is very much misunderstood, because, the Zen literature abounds with contradictions and paradoxes. It's like this. There was a great master of Zen in the Song dynasty in China. And when he was a very young monk, he went to his master's room, for his confrontation. And this master said to him, "When you say you see it, this seeing is not the true seeing. The true seeing is the not seeing. And seeing can never reach it." And so saying, he raised his fist and he says, "Do you see it?" And this little monk says, "Well, yeah, I see it. I see. I see. How often do you say, 'I see'?" "I see," he said. And this master said to him, "You're putting another head over your own." Mm-hmm. And hearing this little disciple became aware of something moving inside of himself, stirring, Something was like waking up. Hmm? And this master, watching him, observed this, and he said, "What do you see?" And this time, this disciple didn't say, "I see." He quoted a poetic passage. "Even when the bamboos are growing thick, they do not obstruct the running stream." And you knew he had seen something. Well, what are they talking about? If we're speaking Zen-wise, seeing is not seeing, and to be conscious is not to be conscious. And when you say you have it, you've missed it. So where are you about to be at? Right here. Huh? That's the thing. At the same time, not seeing is not at all seeing. And the seeing on the phenomenal level, or in this phenomenal world, and over and over, and through this seeing in the phenomenal world, over and through the discriminatory seeing, there must be another sort of seeing, which makes the ordinary seeing a true seeing, which is seeing in the Zen sense. You see, first this little monk, "Oh, I see." And then something else, and he couldn't say "I see" anymore. He says when the bamboos grow thick, they don't obstruct the running stream. And this monk came to a teacher called Tozan, asking, winter comes, summer comes, how do we avoid them? Cold and heat alternatively come and go. How can one escape them? And this master, Tozan, answered him, "Why do we not go to a place where there is neither hot or cold, or summer or winter, which is not a running away?" See? And then he says to him, "Where is there such a place where there is neither hot nor cold?" Sozan, who was the third patriarch in China, he wrote a long poem. And I want to read you a couple of phrases from it. The perfect way, which of course everyone is seeking. I can get on the perfect way. I can walk with sure footsteps right into the gates of heaven. So I'm looking for the perfect way. The perfect way knows no difficulties, except that it refuses to make preference. Only when freed from hate and love, it reveals itself fully and without disguise. 1/10 of an inch's difference, and heaven and earth are set apart. If you want to see it manifest, take no thought either for or against it. To set up what you like against what you dislike, this is the disease of the mind. When the deep meaning of the way is not understood, peace of mind is disturbed and nothing is gained. And it goes on and on from there. But also the 22nd patriarch in India, Manora, he said, "The mind moveth with the 10,000 things." This is 10,000 things is our discrimination for and against. The mind moves with the 10,000 things. Even when moving, it is serene. You have not taken thought for or against. Even when moving, it is serene. Perceive its essence as it moveth on, and neither joy nor sorrow there is. That's non-discrimination. That's 3 a.m. Yeah, it's quite nice, 3 a.m, 4 in the afternoon, 4 in the morning, afternoon. Okay? And now, may the peace and the power that passeth all understanding hold us and keep us in the love of the Christed consciousness while we are seemingly separate one from another. And I thank you very much.
If you find Lola's talks valuable, more will be posted in weeks to come.